The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hi everyone, my name is Trish Connor-Cato. This course is for any user who has prior Tableau experience. With so many competing technologies, Tableau has emerged as a powerful favorite in the world of business intelligence solutions. This course will take your Tableau skills to the next level by teaching you best practices along with the most sought-after dashboard designs. You're about to embark upon an intense but amusing journey that will provide you with an arsenal of innovative techniques. Your new tool set will help you reuse your current Tableau worksheets and to create new ones for the purpose of including those worksheets on dashboards that you will be proud to share. Users will enjoy interacting with your dashboards for the purpose of getting deep analytical information from them, and they will be impressed with their flexibility. Most important, the class will overview various business scenarios that translate into different types of dashboards, and you will leave with that understanding. By the end of the course, you should be able to create effective dashboards on your own, and you will also walk away with class files that help you get a head start. In each module, we'll work with a specific data set and build visualizations to be used on our dashboards. The third module will focus on Airbnbs in New York. We'll learn how to use global filters and to customize colors. We'll also be using text cards in this module. In Module 4, we'll be using Billboard Hot 100 analytics data. We'll cover trends, cluster analysis, adding annotations to a viz, and how to hide field labels.
Looking to support our channel and get a great deal? Become a member today to unlock ad-free videos. That's right, your favorite courses without a single ad. Interested in a specific video? Purchase one of our ad-free courses individually. Looking for even more? Gain access to exams, certificates, and exclusive content at LearnitAnytime.com. More information can be found in the video description below.
In our third module, we'll work with the Airbnbs in New York dataset, and you'll learn about global filters, custom colors, and text cards. So I'm going to start this module by going into the folder where I have the files from the video description for Airbnbs New York. And I want you to see we're going to use the CSV file in Tableau, but it also comes with an image file that we're going to want to use as well. So what I'd like you to do is copy that image because we need to paste it in a specific folder. And now I've navigated to my Tableau repository, which is under my Documents folder. And so here, there is a Shapes folder. In the previous module, we used a couple of arrow shapes, and these are the shapes that are built into Tableau that are for our use. But if you want to use a shape of your own, you're going to have to put it inside this folder's subfolder, which we're going to create now. So we're in the Shapes folder, and we need to create a new folder within Shapes, and it needs to be called My Shapes. Now, you might already have one there, in which case you can just open it. And we're going to open it and paste that image in here. So before we close this folder, let's go back to the My Tableau repository level, because later in this module, we're going to be accessing this preferences file, and we have to access it from this folder. So let's leave that Windows Explorer window open, and then we can navigate to Tableau. In Tableau, we're going to connect via text file as usual. And these data sets are free out on the internet. That's where I got them from. They just happen to come as CSVs. And so we're going to just double click that Airbnb New York City 2019 data set. And before we get started, Let's go over the information that we have in this data set. So we have an ID column, the name, host ID, host name. Neighborhood group represents the 5 boroughs of New York City. And then the neighborhoods are subsections within those groups. It has some geographic data in the form of latitude and longitude. We have room type, price, minimum nights, the number of reviews, the date of the last review, the reviews per month, calculated host listing, and availability 365. So how available is this Airbnb? If you look at the last review field, you'll notice some null values. And as you scroll down, you'll see more of them, and they correspond to null values in the reviews per month field. And what we want to do is filter them out so they won't show on any of our visualizations. We're going to go to the upper right corner and click on the Add button, and then Add again. The field is Last Review and OK. And at the bottom, we're going to select Individual Dates and Next. And then we'll see that null value on the list. We're going to check it. And then underneath to the right, we're going to go ahead and check Exclude. It lets you know that it excluded one of 1,765 dates. We're going to click OK. And now the other thing that we want to do, I should have pointed this out. Click on Last Review again and click Edit. The date range for this data set goes all the way back to 2011, and it's through 2019. So we're going to just focus on 2018 and 2019. So I'm going to click OK on that, and I'm going to add another filter based on the same field, Last Review. Click OK. And this one, I'm going to click Years and Next. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these except 2018 and 2019 and exclude them. And we will click OK and OK. So it lets you know right here, the Last Review filter excludes null, and the year of last review keeps 2018 and 2019. We'll click OK. Our data set will refresh, and we're pretty good to go here. So let's go ahead and click on Sheet 1. So the way this module is going to work is we're going to build 4 visualizations, and then we'll copy one of them and modify it. So we'll have a total of 5. Then we're going to use those 5 visualizations to use global filters on, which is during the first lesson. After that, we're going to modify the preferences file to create a custom color palette, and then we'll apply that on some of our sheets. Now, at that point, we're in lesson 2. We'll then create our dashboard and end the module by creating text cards, also known as summary tiles, on worksheets, and we'll then use those on our dashboard. So let's get busy building our first viz. We're going to name this sheet, and I'm going to use the pound sign to represent number, or as they call it, a hashtag, number of reviews by month. And we're going to drag the last review to columns, and we want it to be the month. So I'm going to use the drop down this time, and I'm going to select my month year combination. Notice we only have 2018 and 2019 in our data set. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on the number of reviews measure, and it automatically puts it up in rows for me. Let's say we want to include more data. So we're going to go back to the data source tab. In the upper right, we're going to go to edit under filters. And we're going to click the year of last review filter and edit it. And let's uncheck 2017 and 2016. So we'll have a couple of more years of data. And we'll go ahead and click OK, and then OK. Now when we go back to our number of reviews by month sheet, you'll see that we have more data in it. To give it more context, we're going to drag neighborhood group to rows in front of sum. So now for each borough in New York City, we're seeing the number of reviews by month. And we can right-click on neighborhood group, the heading, and we're going to hide field labels for rows. And then what we can do is we're going to add neighborhood group to filters. We're going to leave all of them. I'm going to just do use all and click OK. And then I'm going to show that filter. And I'm going to make it a multiple value drop down. Now, this would be a good time for us to save our file. I'm going to call it NYC Airbnb. I'm also going to add neighborhood group to color so we get some more visual interest on our chart. And of course, you have your color legend on the right. So for right now, we're going to go ahead and bring up a new sheet. We're going to name this sheet Airbnb New York Density Map. And so we are going to just put longitude in columns. And we don't want it to be an average. So I'm going to right click on its pill and I'm going to make it a dimension instead of a measure. And we're going to put latitude in rows and do the same with latitude, make it a dimension. And at this point, it gives us a map. It's not yet a density map. This is your symbol map. And so we're going to make it a density map in just a little bit. First, we're going to put neighborhood group and neighborhood in detail on the marks card. So now when we hover over any mark on our map, we're seeing the latitude and the longitude, the neighborhood, and the neighborhood group. And I want to change the order of these. So I want neighborhood group to be first. And I swap that at the bottom of the marks card. Oh, I thought I did. Let's see. Oh, there's my arrow. Yeah. So now when I hover, nope, it's still showing that way in the tooltip. So I'm going to click on tooltip and I'm going to fix it here. Just going to cut that and paste it. And now I'm going to click OK. So now, because the borough is actually Brooklyn and the neighborhood that I'm pointing to is Bushwick, and you'll notice as I move around the map, the latitude and the longitude change. And if I stay in that area, the neighborhood will change as well. So now I'm over in Queens. It's another borough of New York. Here's Staten Island. This is Queens. And if I zoom out on the map, here's the Bronx and Manhattan. So you have your boroughs there. So to make this a density map, on the marks card, we're going to do the drop down next to automatic. And at the bottom, we're going to select density. So now you can see the darker colors are the areas where there's more Airbnb activity. So there's a lot in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Here we are in Manhattan. Looks like it has the most. That is what a density map looks like. Now we're going to put a background map on here. And so we can do this from the map menu, hover over background maps, and they have, at the top, all different kinds. I'm going to select dark because a density map really looks good when it has that dark contrast. It's actually easier to see. And now you can go back to map, background maps. Another one that I like is satellite. I'm going to end up using dark because it contrasts better with the density. But I also like the satellite background map as well. I'm going to go back and change it to dark. Now, in addition to adding background maps, you can add background layers to a map. And we can go to the map menu for that as well and choose background layers. And this panel will open up on the left side of your screen. And you can see at the top it has the style, right? We don't have any washout on ours. If we did, you'll notice that we can make the dark style kind of fade away. So I'm not going to put a washout on it. And then you have a host of background map layers. Some of them are checked by default, like base and land cover. You have your country and region borders and names. Same for state provinces. And those are coming checked out of the box. And so we want to add a few more layers. We would like to select streets, highways, and routes or routes, depending on where you're from. I'm actually from New York originally, so I say routes. I'm going to check that one. And you can see more detail on your map. We also are going to check county names. And so you can see the different counties surrounding. This is New Jersey over here. New York, this is Long Island over here. And the last one we're going to check is cities. So they will show on the map as well. Now the density portion is covering certain things. Queens is a county, Bronx is a county, so on and so forth. You have Nassau County, which is on Long Island. And then you have your city names as well. We can close that background layer panel. The other thing that can be good to show on the map is the map scale. So we can also do that from the map menu. And we're going to go to map options. And so at the bottom, we're going to check show map scale. And it shows in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. So it's showing you how large 10 miles would be on the map. You also can change the units to metric if you need to, if you like to see it in kilometers. I'm going to put it back on automatic, which is US. And this map options also control what else shows on the map. So this whole thing here, this is your map search, right? You have layer controls, your view toolbar. It allows pan and zoom. And I'm going to close map options. And if I hover over this right arrow, these are some other options. Zoom area, if I want to pan the map. Right now, it's on a rectangular selection. I'm going to put it on pan, and that way I can click and drag to different areas of this map. And I'm also using the roller bar on my mouse to zoom in and out. So I'll be able to see more surrounding areas if I wanted to. But we're focused on New York City here. We have a couple other things we're going to do with this map. We're going to click on color on the marks card. And we can change the opacity of our density area. So you can see the city and county names underneath and everything, right? but I'm going to make it a little bit more opaque so I can basically still see those names through it. And then I can change the intensity of it as well. When I amp the intensity up to 100%, it actually becomes more clear for the viewer. You can see the darker areas, the areas that have more Airbnbs, but it also makes it a little bit larger. And I don't, generally speaking, like the intensity to be that high. So then I'm going to click anywhere to collapse the color card. And then I'm going to click on size on the marks card. And I can also manually change the size of that area without changing the intensity if I wanted to. And let's go ahead and save our file and bring up a new sheet. We're going to name this sheet NYC Borough Map. And we're going to drag longitude to columns, make it a dimension, and latitude to rows, same thing. We're going to drag neighborhood group to color, and we're also going to drag it to label. So now you can see, like if you're not from New York, you might want to see the color coding, but also see the names of the different boroughs. And as I zoom out, those labels don't show as well. When I zoom in, you're definitely not able to view. Well, they'll populate, but there's just going to be many more of them. So they're repeating each borough all over the map, in addition to the color coding. And that may be helpful because that way, if people don't want to hover over a different point of the map, a different mark to see the neighborhood group, they can actually see them on the map. It can be helpful if you're not familiar with the area. We're going to go ahead and click on label on the marks card. And I am going to go to text. And for the text, well, that's fine. We don't have to change that. Sorry, cancel. I'm going to go to font, and I'm going to make it 12 point and bold, so they stand out a little bit more on the map. I'm also going to create a neighborhood group filter, and we're going to use all. Click OK. And we want to show that filter. And you know that we want it to be a multiple values drop down. So if someone wants to narrow in on just a particular neighborhood like Manhattan and perhaps Queens, they can just focus on those areas on the map. I'm going to switch it back to all. And we are going to go ahead and save our file and bring up a new sheet. We're going to go ahead and name this one, and I'm going to abbreviate average, AVG, prices by borough and neighborhood. We're going to drag price to columns and change it to average. And we want neighborhood group and neighborhood in rows. Let's go ahead and create a neighborhood group filter, our regular multiple values drop down. And you can do that one on your own. I'm going to just have you pause the video, do it, and then resume. We're also going to drag neighborhood group to color, so we get our legend. So if we scroll down, you'll see when we get to Brooklyn, we'll start seeing the orange and so on and so forth. And we want to sort these bars in descending order. So I'm going to hover over this gray area here, and here's the sort button. And when I click it, it puts the highest average price at the top. And that is per borough. So as I scroll down, when I get to Brooklyn, I'll see its highest average bar at the top. Now we want to add a reference line to this. So the last time we did this in a previous module, we did it from the x-axis. This time we're going to go to the analytics pane on the left, and we're going to click and hold on reference line and drag it into the view. And we want it in every pane. So I'm going to drop it on top of pane. And what we want is the average. We want to see the average price, basically, is what we're saying here. So we can track where we are within that average. And at this point, I can move that over and already see the line. So you'll have that dark the dark vertical line going straight down in the pane for the Bronx. And once I close this box, I'm going to click OK and hover over it. It lets me know what the average is for that particular neighborhood group. And it's 84.1. So you see the ones that are above the average price. And go down and you can see the same line. It moves in each pane for where that particular borough's average is. And that helps with a quick visual analysis. You can quickly see that by scrolling down, Manhattan has the highest average price and the Bronx has the lowest. Let's go ahead and save our file. And this time we're going to copy our average prices by borough and neighborhood sheet. And we're going to name this sheet average price of room type by borough. And we're going to delete the neighborhood pill in the rows shelf. And we're going to add room type to the rows shelf in place of it. So this already had our reference lines on it, right? So that's good. It's just by borough. We don't have the neighborhoods, but we have the room types in here so we can do the comparison. Go ahead and save your file. Before we start using them, let's talk about global filters. They give you the ability to set up a filter on one worksheet and use it on others. So you know the problem we've run into with previous dashboards, when we have these individual filters on sheets that we're showing, all of those show filters come over to the dashboard. Even if it's the same filter, it's assigned to a different sheet. So this will help you work through that. When you're using global filters, there are 4 basic options. The first one is related primary data source. You can use the filter on selected or all worksheets that use a related primary data source. The filters will have a sheets icon when they're used this way. Then you have current primary data source filters, and they can be used on all sheets using the same data source. These types of filters will have a database icon when they're used. Selected worksheets. If any of the worksheets you select already contain a filter on the same field, the dialog box will provide details about that filter. If you still select a sheet, the current filter will override any existing filter selections. And then lastly, you have the ability to filter all worksheets on a dashboard. It can be utilized with the same data source or related data sources as their primary data source. So now we're going to use these. So what we're going to do now is I'm on the number of reviews by month sheet, and that is the first sheet that we use the neighborhood group filter on. We've also used that same filter on every other sheet except your density map. So what I'd like you to do is go to all of those other sheets. You're going to leave number of reviews by month alone. Go to all those other sheets, click on the neighborhood group pill in the filter shelf and delete it, and then come back to this sheet. So now that you've done that, on the number of reviews by month sheet, we're going to right click on that filter pill, and we're going to hover over apply to worksheets. So the language here is a little bit different than on the slide, which is interesting because the language on the slide is the language from all the Tableau sites. So the first option here, you all using apply to worksheets, all using related data sources. That one is related primary data source from the slide. So you can use it on all or selected worksheets that have that related data source. And so what happens here, the filter would automatically be created on any existing sheets and on any new worksheets you create that use that related data source. Any changes you make to the filter will affect all those worksheets. The second option is current primary data source, here all using this data source. And so that one is also automatically created on any new worksheets once you drag another field into the view. And any changes made to the filter will affect all of those worksheets. You have your selected worksheets choice. And this is the one that if you have any that contain a filter in the same field, you'll get information about it and you can override it or not. And then the one by default, it's on a setting for only this worksheet. That's why we've been doing them on individual sheets. And if we had a dashboard in here, we would have a choice to filter all the worksheets on a dashboard. So we're all using the same primary data source. Doesn't really matter, right? If we use that one, you'll see the different icons here. I'll give you some options. Let's first use all using related data sources. And that one, you get a double database icon. We only have one data source. You know, when we've been bringing in multiple data sources and relating them, that's what that would indicate. I'm going to right click on that pill and go back to apply to worksheets. And we can use all using this data source. So now that's where you get the database icon. And if you go to your next sheet, even though we didn't have this filter on the density map, we have it on here now, and it's on every other sheet as well with that database icon. We're going to go back to number of reviews. We're going to right click again, apply to worksheets. This time we're going to use selected worksheets. And we get to select the ones that we want. So the current sheet is already dimmed out. We're going to uncheck the Airbnb density map, and we're going to click OK. So now we get like the double sheet icon. So if we go through the sheets, the air density map doesn't have the filter. The Borough map and the other two vises do have it. So that's global filter. And notice, if you go back to number of reviews by month, the filter is showing on that sheet. Go to your Borough map, and it's not showing. And it's not showing on the last two vises either, because we can use that one filter for all of these sheets that we've applied it to. That will help us with our dashboard filter management. So I have saved my file and I closed down the Tableau application because we're going to be editing the preferences file to create a custom color palette. Before we do so, there's some background information you need to know that's on this slide. And by the way, this slideshow is in your files for the video description. And you may want to pause the video and go open it because there's a link that you're going to need to use in this slideshow in order to get what we need to create the custom palette. You already know that you can create and use your own custom color palettes by modifying that preferences.tps file that is in your My Repository folder. You can add as many custom palettes as you like, each with as many colors as you want. However, you should know that the Edit Colors dialog box will only show 20 colors. So it is suggested that if you need more than 20 colors, you may want to create several custom palettes with 20 or fewer colors in each palette. When you're modifying preferences, you're going to use the standard HTML format for the new colors. And when you save the preferences file, it should say, and restart Tableau Desktop, the color palette names you added will appear in the Select Color Palette drop-down list. So just make sure your Tableau Desktop application is closed. And I will update this slide before you're actually watching the video, so it says when you save the preferences file. Now I have a note here. You can only use straight quotation marks, not curly ones, and they're used to delimit the palette name and its type in the preferences.tps file. Now, there are 4 different types, or actually 3 different types of custom color palettes. The one that we're going to use is a custom categorical palette, and that contains several distinct colors that can be assigned to a discrete dimension member, for example, neighborhood group. And on the slide, I have the code that we're going to use in the TPS file, but you don't want to copy it off of the slide because it won't come over well. The next type is custom sequential, and that's a sequential palette that shows a single color varying in intensity. It's used for continuous fields, typically for measures like sum of sales. Then we have custom diverging, which we've seen a few times, and that shows 2 ranges of values using color intensity to show the magnitude of the number and the actual color to show which range the number is from. And so something like sum of profit, I think we've used that on. You have a link there that we're not going to click quite yet that says copy code. And underneath that, there's a link to more about how to create custom color palettes on Tableau. So now we're going to click the copy code link. Now you're in the PowerPoint, and in order to access the link, if you're not in slideshow, you have to do Control click. And it opens up a notepad file. I'm going to do Control A and Control C. And notice that we have straight quotes up at the top in the first line is being used to name your palette, and then the type of palette, regular, relates to the type of palette that we're doing, which is a custom categorical palette. So we've copied that code, and now we can go over to the My Tableau repository folder. In this folder, we're going to right-click on the preferences file. Then we're going to hover over Open With, and I'm going to choose Notepad. If it's not on your list, go ahead and choose another app and find it. And we have in here, we just have the beginning line with the XML version. And then we have 2 tags, an opening and a closing tag for workbook. Click at the end of the opening workbook tag and press Enter. And now you have to create 2 tabs, and we'll be ready to paste what you grabbed from the notepad file. So we're going to do an opening tag here, and it's going to be called Preferences. And then we're going to press Enter twice, and we're going to type a closing Preferences tag. So that has the slash, just like the one underneath it, but we're going to have it called Preferences. And then we're going to use our up arrow to get in between the opening and closing tags for Preferences. And we're going to go ahead and do Control V to paste in what you copied from the notepad file. We got an extra line there at the bottom. I'm going to just get rid of it. And so we have our color palette. When we go to access it in Tableau, it's going to be called My Categorical Palette. And what we want to do is we want to save this preferences file and close it. And now go relaunch Tableau Desktop. So I've relaunched Tableau and reopened my NYC Airbnb workbook. And now I'm going to go to the number of reviews by month tab. And we're going to go to our neighborhood group color legend on the right and edit the colors. Now when we go to select color palette, if you go all the way to the bottom, you will see your My Categorical palette. And so I'm going to select it. These are the colors that are in that palette, very similar to the colors that we have here. We now have access to this palette. So I'm going to go ahead and do some color changes. I'm going to make the Bronx red. Brooklyn, I'll leave orange. Manhattan, I'm going to do dark blue. Queens, I'm going to give it this purplish color. And Staten Island, I will give this, which orange did I use there? I'll give this lighter blue color just to use the palette. And then I'll click OK. So that palette will be there unless you go back to the preferences file and get rid of it. And just something else I want to show you, particularly for a line chart, like we have on this number of reviews by month. We have multiple little line charts. Let's go to size on the marks card and increase the size a little bit. And you'll see it'll make the lines a bit thicker, which is better visually. So I know that I said earlier at this point that we were going to create our dashboard and then create some more sheets for our text cards. I'm going to flip that around. I'm going to create everything first and then we'll put it on the dashboard. So now we're going to get to lesson 3, where we're creating text cards, also known as summary tiles. And they're used to quickly communicate a few quick important data points. So let's go ahead and bring up a new sheet. Each summary tile that you create has to reside on its own sheet. We're going to name this sheet Number of Reviews Summary Tile. And we are going to drag the reviews per month field to text on the marks card. And we're going to right click on it and make it a measure. And we want to have the count function. So it just gives me the count of reviews out of our entire data set. We are going to right click on that field and format it. And we can go ahead and close that format pane. We don't need to do that right now. Let's click on the title and we're going to edit the title, and we're just going to take out, well, we can get rid of that sheet name placeholder, and it's just going to be number of reviews. And we want to make that font centered and click OK. And then we're going to change our view. It's going to look weird. We're going to change it to entire view, which looks very strange right now. We are going to right click and format. And now we want to add a blue border around that number of reviews. So I'm going to go to the borders icon up top. And for the cell, I'm going to select the thick border, and I'm going to make it that darker blue color. And I can increase the thickness of that border. I'm going to use the third one to make it just a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go back to the previous sheet and just format that field, the count of reviews per month. Just kick it up a little bit. And now we're going to copy the median price summary tile sheet, and we'll name this sheet count of room types summary tile. And then we're going to change the title to just count of room types, or actually I'm going to change it to number of room types using the pound sign, and click OK. We're going to go ahead and delete the median price pill, and we're going to close the format pane. We're going to drag room type to text and right click on it, make it a measure, and we're going to use the count function there. So we have the count of room type. So we've completed our 3 summary tiles, and you can go ahead and save your file and bring up a new dashboard sheet. So now we're going to name this dashboard, the sheet tab anyway, Airbnb data-NYC for New York City. We're going to start by dragging a horizontal container into the view. And actually, let me remove that for a moment. I changed mine to floating so I could have a little bit more control over it. So I changed it to floating at the bottom, and now I'm going to drag the container into the view. So you have more freedom when it's floating. You can resize it. We are going to size it so it's as wide as the width of your canvas. And I'm going to move it all the way, not quite, but all the way almost to the top of the canvas. I can move it again a little bit later. So now it says, hold down Shift to drop floating objects into this container. And so I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to grab the number of reviews summary tile and drag it into that horizontal container. And then what I'm going to do is grab the median price summary tiles, and I'm going to drop it on the right side of the number of reviews. And I have one more, the count of the room types summary tile, and I'm going to drag that over to the right. So now if it doesn't come in right, you might have to switch it from entire view up at the top to fit with instead. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click the handle on number of room types so I get the container frame. I'm going to do the drop down, and I'm going to do distribute contents evenly. And then this whole container doesn't need to be as tall as it is. So I'm going to make sure the container is selected, and I'm going to push it up quite a bit. So it's almost all the way at the top like that. So you can have your summary tiles, your text cards that just give important information about your data, but we had to create those on separate sheets. We're going to add another horizontal floating container underneath the current one. And for this one, I'm going to widen it. And I want to grab the Airbnb New York density map, pop it in the left side of it, of the container. And I'm holding down Shift because I'm dropping objects into the floating container. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the New York City Borough map, and I'm going to put that on the right side of our second horizontal container. I'm going to double click its handle, and I'm going to go to the container drop down and distribute contents evenly. So this came with that neighborhood group legend. And what I'm going to do is click on the legend, and I'm going to do its drop down and make it floating. And I'm actually going to move it somewhere. I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to drop it on the right side of the Borough map. I don't need that legend to be as wide, so I'm going to size it down a bit. This one is being selected. And so I have to go back to my container dropdown and uncheck distribute contents evenly. So it will pop the legend in with the proper sizing on the right for me if I do it that way. And I can size it down just a little bit more manually now. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the legend and I am going to edit the title. So instead of neighborhood group, it says boroughs. And that's pretty cool. It's the length of the container. That's fine. All right. Now we are ready to insert a floating vertical container at the bottom. And we're going to drag the number of reviews by month into it by using Shift. And I am going to grab the container and widen it a bit. So I've adjusted its width. I'm going to rename that neighborhood group filter, its title. I'm going to name it Boroughs. And I'm going to grab my floating legend and drag it underneath Boroughs. Well, trying to get them both. Let me make sure it's floating. Nope, that's why I wouldn't do it. So I'm going to make both floating so I can have more freedom there. And now I can have them both over in that container. Okay, deselect the container. So, and actually this number of reviews by month, I can make that a little bit taller as well because I have the space to do so. So I'm going to select its container and just fill up that space at the bottom. And if I wanted to, I can select this container and make those two visualizations at the top a little bit taller as well. Now for this bottom one, let me get the container right first. I'm going to widen it a little bit further so it's as wide as the other two combined. And now let's go to Dashboard menu and choose Format. And we're going to give the dashboard like a light gray shading just to have some contrast. And I'm going to close that Format pane and show the dashboard title at the bottom. And I'm going to edit that title so that it says after the sheet name, I'm going to do a dash and type the word dashboard. And then I'm going to center it and click OK. So there you have it. We are going to go ahead and save this file. So just to be fair, I'm going to show you my other dashboard for Airbnb information. It includes the average prices by borough and neighborhood chart, as well as the average price of room type by borough. I have the neighborhood group legend over here, and I use the image object to bring in that map of New York City, kind of as like a little logo in the upper right-hand corner. And in Module 3, we focused on the Airbnbs in New York data, and we created visualizations as usual. We also worked with global filters, which helps us with that filter situation on dashboards. We modified the preferences TPS file in Notepad so that we could create our own categorical custom color palette. And we ended by creating those summary tiles, also known as text cards, that we added to our dashboard. Now, you realize there are a couple of sheets that we did not put on our dashboard, and we also didn't put in the image that's in the Airbnb's folder. So I'm leaving that for you to play with on your own. I'm sure you'll be able to create a new dashboard, add the other two images, and somehow fit that Airbnb image on it, which you put in your My Shapes folder. Module 4 will be using the Billboard Hot 100 analytics dataset from the video description, and we'll start with learning about trends before moving on to cluster analysis, annotations, and hiding field labels. Okay, before we dive into analyzing the Billboard Hot 100 charts, let's discuss trends and the types of trend models that are in Tableau. So trend lines can be used to predict the continuation of a trend and help to identify the correlation between two variables by mapping the trend of both at the same time. The R-squared value is a number from 0 to 1 that reveals how closely the estimated values for the trend line compared to your actual data. A trend line is most reliable when its R-squared value is at or near 1. The R-squared value is also known as the coefficient of determination. This value is automatically calculated in Tableau when you apply the trend line to your data. There are 5 trend line models in Tableau, the first of which is linear, and you'll see the description there on the slide. That will probably fit best with our data. So it usually shows that something is increasing or decreasing at a steady rate. Then you have logarithmic, and that's a curved line. Linear is a straight line. And that model is best used to show the rate of change in the data that increases or decreases quickly and then levels out. Exponential is also curved, and it's best used when data values rise or fall at constantly increasing rates. Polynomial, also curved, it's used when data fluctuates. For example, when you're analyzing gains and losses over a large data set. And last but not least, power. All of these are curved except linear. And that's used with data sets that compare measurements that increase at a specific rate. For example, the acceleration of a race car at 1-second intervals. Since we're going to be using cluster analysis in lesson 2, let's go over it now. So clusters analysis partitions marks in the view into clusters. The marks within each cluster are more like one another than they are to marks in other clusters. So for example, clusters based on weeks on the board. Think of them as groups that do not exist in your data set that you create by turning them into clusters. In Tableau, I'm going to go ahead and grab text file and navigate to my Billboard Hot 100 folder. And I'm going to double click charts to bring the data in. So the first thing I want to point out when we're looking through the data, pay attention to the last week column, and you'll see some nulls on there. And if you notice corresponding in weeks on the board, the nulls have a 1 value in weeks on the board. The reason why they don't have a number for last week is because they only got on the board, say, this week, the current week. So we're not going to filter out those nulls in the last week column. However, we do want to do a date filter. This data goes from 1958 to 2021. Now, 1958 is a partial year, and we're going to filter that year out. 2021 only has 45 weeks of data instead of 52, so we're going to keep that because it's more current. So let's go up to our upper right corner under filters and add a filter for date. And it's going to be by, by years. And we'll just select 1958 and exclude it. And click OK. And OK again. Before we build our first visualization, which we're going to add trend lines to, let's go up to our filters and edit, and then select year of date and edit. So we excluded 1958. All the other years are included. But at the bottom of this dialog box, I want you to see this checkbox. It says filter to latest date value when workbook is opened. In our case, our charts CSV file is static. Unless someone were going to be going into it and adding like the rest of the weeks for 2021 or the beginning weeks of 2022, so on and so forth. When we open our workbook, we would like all of the latest values to be included. So when we're saying that we're just including 59 through 2021, if we don't check that, it won't bring in newer values automatically. Because we're doing it after we're editing the filter, when I check this box at the bottom that says filter to latest date value when workbook is open, it unchecked 1958, and if you scroll to the bottom, it's excluded 2021, which shouldn't happen. So we're going to uncheck 2021, go back up and check 1958, and then we're going to click OK again, and OK. And so now we can go to sheet 1. On this sheet, we're going to drag the weeks on board measure to columns, and right-click on its pill and change it to a dimension. We're going to drag artist to rows, and we're also going to drag the peak rank measure to rows to the right of artist. And when you drag artist to rows, it may prompt you, letting you know that there's so many members. There's over like 99,000 members in that group. And so it may want you to edit it. I added all members. And then we're going to change peak rank to a dimension as well. And go ahead and drag song to details on the marks card. And we're going to add a date filter. And we're going to filter by years. We're going to select use all and OK. And then we're going to want to show that filter and make it a multiple value drop down. We're also going to add artists to the filter shelf. And we're going to use all and OK. And we're also going to show that filter and make it a multiple value drop down. Now let's drag peak rank to color and make it a dimension on the marks card as well. And let's click on color and edit. And I'm going to select the orange palette and click OK. And now I'm going to hold down Control and click on peak rank in the marks card with the color icon in front of it. And I'm going to drag it and drop it to size. So I could have increased the size without dragging it to size, but by dragging it to size, I get the size grid over on the right. I can now still click on size and increase the size if I need it, if I want it to. And I decide that I don't want that size grid, so I'm going to delete the peak rank size pill from the marks card. And then I'll just click on size and increase it a little bit. And so I get the increased size without the size legend. Let's go to the format menu and choose shading. And I'm going to give the worksheet a dark gray shading. And now I'm going to go at the top of the format box. I'm going to go to the font icon, and for the worksheet, I'm going to change the font color to white and bold. It contrasts better with the dark gray background. Now we're going to go to the lines icon at the top of the format frame. And we are going to change our grid lines to dark gray. And we're going to change our zero lines. We're going to leave them dashed, but we're also going to make them dark gray. Let's right click on any artist name and rotate label. And it gives us just a little bit more working space. And we can actually right click on artist over there, the header, and choose hide field labels for rows. If we look at our artist and year filters on the right, we're not seeing the word all in the box because we changed our font to white and they have a white background. So let's go to the artist filter drop down arrow and choose format, filter, and set controls. And on the left under shading, we're going to make it the same gray as the worksheet. And it will do it for the year filter as well. And then we can go ahead and close that filter panel. Let's go to our artist filter, and I am going to uncheck all. And notice the search text at the top. So I'm going to uncheck all, click in search text, and because I'm kind of old school, I'm going to type in Aerosmith. And when it shows up, I'm going to check it. And then I'm going to go up to the search box again. And when I click in there, it selects the part of Aerosmith that I typed. And I'm going to type Al Green and click on Al Green. And I'm going to do one more. And you can, well, I'll just click up there and select Al Green. And then I'm going to put in Bob Marley and check Bob Marley and the Wailers. And then for the years, I'm going to do the filter drop down, and I'm going to uncheck all, and I'm going to check 1970, 71, 72, 73, 74, and 75. And notice only Aerosmith and Al Green are showing in our viz. So I'm going to go back to my year filter, and I'm going to check 76, 77, 78, and 79. So we get the whole decade of the 70s. And now Bob Marley shows up again. And so if you hover over any of Bob's circles, you'll see that it was the first one is his peak rank was 73. And for the song Roots Rock Reggae, and it was Weeks on the Board 1. And then the next one, his peak rank is 62, same song, Weeks on the Board 3, so on and so forth. So it's tracking the artist, their peak rank, the song, and the number of weeks on the board. And so if you look at Aerosmith, you'll see they have multiple songs out there as you hover over their circles. And the same for Al Green. Now we're going to go to the Analytics tab on the left, and we're going to add our trend line. So under Model, you're going to click and hold Trendline and drag it to the view, and you'll see the 5 different types that are available in Tableau. And so we're going to go ahead and drop it on linear. And so that's the only one that gives you a straight line, right? And if you hover over that line, you'll see the calculation that's used. And then you'll see an R squared and a P value. The R squared value is what we want to focus on. Remember, it ranges from 0 to 1. And it's most reliable at or near 1. The closer it is to 1, the more closely the estimated values for the trend line compared to your actual values. So the R squared value is everything when it comes to trend lines. Now this one is not really showing, it's not a good value. It's 0.49. And this one is 0.68, which is better. Aerosmith is 0.60. Now we're going to drag trend line from under model back into the view. And this time we're going to do logarithmic. And you see you get your curved line. And if you hover over any of those curved lines, you'll see that the R squared values have increased somewhat. It's saying that it's more closely, the estimated values are more closely related compared to our actual values when we put it on logarithmic. And that is the one where the rate of change in data increases or decreases quickly and then levels out. Bob Marley's is at 0.87 for the R squared value. We can go ahead and name this sheet Artist Trending by Weeks on Board. And it would probably be a good time for us to save our workbook. And so I'm going to call this one Billboard Hot 100. The other thing you can do with a trend line is right click on any of your trend lines. And at the top, you'll see Describe Trend Line. Go ahead and click that. And so it brings up a dialog. It's telling you the p-value, the equation, the coefficients term, their term, the value, standard error, t-value, and p-value. And you have it for N weeks on board and intercept. You could copy this if it was necessary for you to have this information. We're going to close that and right click on a trend line again. And this time we're going to select Describe Trend Model. And so you get a larger dialog and it gives you information, the model formula, the number of filtered observations, all kinds of different calculation values, right? Analysis of variance section. And then it has individual trend lines and it's showing you by what you have filtered for the artist and the dates that what their trend lines comprised of. And this too can be copied. So now let's create a new worksheet where we're going to do some cluster analysis. If you look at our fields list on the left, right, we only have a measure called weeks on board, and it can range from 1 week, right, all the way up to a lot of different weeks. But we don't have groups of those week breakdowns like 1 to 5, 6 to 10, so on and so forth. And so we can use cluster analysis to somewhat create those groups for us and partition our data in that way. Let's go ahead and drag the date field to rows and change it to, I'm going to hover over more and choose week number. Let's drag the song field to text on the marks card. And right now, this is like making absolutely no sense, but we're not quite done. And we're going to drag date to the filter shelf. We're going to choose years and next. We're going to use all and okay. And we want to show this filter, but this time we want to make it a single value drop down. So at the end of the day, we're going to want to show #1 songs by week per year. And so in order to do that, we're going to grab the rank measure and drag it to the filter shelf. And where it's automatically on all values, we're going to do next. And on range of values, well, this screen here, We don't want range of values. We want at most. And then we're going to type a number 1 in that text box. So we only want songs ranked at number 1. And we're going to click OK. We're not going to show that filter. And so now we're going to grab weeks of on board, and we're going to drag that to text on the marks card. And we're going to expand our Show Me pane. And in the lower right corner, we're going to use packed bubbles. And I'm going to collapse Show Me. So now let's go ahead and name the sheet. We haven't done our cluster analysis yet, but let's name our sheet. And it's going to be, I'm using the £, or hashtag as it's called, and then 1. So number 1, songs by week dash per year. And then let's edit the title. Click in front of the sheet name placeholder. We're going to go to the insert drop down, and down at the bottom, we're going to select year date, and then do a space between those two things. Let's do Control A to select all of that. And let's make the font bold and change its color to dark blue. And then click OK. So right now it says all number 1 songs by week per year because we haven't used our date filter yet. Let's change this to entire view and then go ahead and save. So we can access cluster analysis from the Analytics tab on the left. Under Model, you will see Cluster, and we're going to drag it into the view and drop it on Cluster. So it's using the variable, the sum of the weeks on board, and the number of clusters is automatic. And in the background, you see our packed bubbles all have different colors. And on the right side, you'll see the color legend for the clusters. We're going to close that clusters dialog. And let's say we wanted more clusters. You could have up to 50. What we can do is we can right click on clusters. Notice it put it on color in the marks card. We can right click on it in the marks card. And we can go to edit clusters to get that dialog box back open. Let's change the number of clusters there to 5. And you notice it does it automatically. So now we have another color added to our legend. We don't really need 5. Let's change it back to 4 and close that box. Let's go to our year filter, and I'm going to go ahead and filter for 2020. So makes it a little bit more readable. That's why we set up the filter for a single value. And so now we can clearly see our clusters. If I hover over any of the darker blue clusters, I can see that the weeks in that grouping go from like 11 to 15. Oh, actually more. Let's see. 9 is the lowest one here. And the larger the circle, the longer the week. So it looks like it's 9 to 14. Or 9 to, yeah, there's a 14 in there. So it looks like it divided it into 9 to 14 weeks on the board. The orange ones have a range, so 18, 20, 21. So the orange ones look like they go from 15 to 21, right? You could rename these groupings, or you could just let the tooltips do the talking. If you wanted to rename these groupings, you kind of have to create groups out of every cluster. There's documentation that says that there's a way to rename the clusters by putting them in their own group. And the way that you theoretically would be able to do that is to control drag clusters from the marks card into your field list. But notice we're getting the no symbol. It will not allow us to do that. So we'll rename one of these. We'll make one of these a group just so you can see how you could do that if you truly want to do something like that. And so we have the aqua colored group goes from weeks 37 to 41 on the board. So I'll show you how you would do that if you wanted to regroup them so you could have more specific names. And the way you would do that is hold down your control key and select each of those aqua clusters, those aqua circles, and then right click on either of the selected ones. And at the bottom, you're going to choose group. And then you get a song group in your field list, which you can rename to something like, I'm going to just click on the word, double click the word song. And I think it was like 37 to 41 weeks on board. So I click away from any of the circles, and you'll notice that right now it's only showing those groups, that group, and that group has a legend. So I'm going to delete that group from the field list, and it lets me know what sheet it's going to affect, and I say yes. And now I'm going to drag my clusters back to color on the marks card. And strangely enough, it kind of rearranged them, right? But I'm comfortable with the legend here and knowing that I can hover over any of these and see on the legend, on the visualization, everything, the cluster name, the song, the week of the date, and the weeks on board. And that's for 2020. If I change it to another year, it will redraw the clusters for that year. Go ahead and save. So I want the font color to be consistent across clusters. So I'm going to just click on text in the marks card, and I'm going to change the font to white bold, just so it's consistent. We had a mix of white and black text before we did that. And then I want to go to worksheet menu and choose show caption. So at the bottom, you see the caption. Song and date week. Color shows details about clusters. Size shows sum of weeks on board. The marks are labeled by song and date week. The data is filtered on date, year, and rank. The date year filter keeps whatever year you have it filtered for. The rank filter includes values less than or equal to 1. And so it's only showing the number 1 ranks. And let's go and change our worksheet background shading to, I'm going to use my dark gray. So I get a really good contrast with my clusters. However, that blue title font is making me cross-eyed. So I'm going to edit that, select all of that text, and I'm going to make it white as well. And I'll make it bold. All right, let's bring up a new sheet. So my apologies, bad directions. We don't need that new sheet, so I'm going to just right click on it and delete it. And I just want to point out something else. When we had it filtered for 2021, the cluster groupings were different. So on this one, which I have filtered for 2001, the red cluster goes from weeks on the board 17 through 20. The dark blue goes weeks 14 through 16, and the aqua is 10 through 13. I'm going to switch back to 2021 for my year. And now the red on here represents weeks 20 through 21. So another reason why you wouldn't want to group these on any particular sheet, because the clusters are drawn based on the analysis when you change to a different year. So might not be a good idea to do that for that reason. You would have to create a bunch of different groups. Now I'm on 1975 and they represent different weeks on the board. So our next lesson is annotations, and we're going to do it on this number 1 songs by week per year cluster analysis visualization, and an annotation just stands out on your viz. So we can right click on any circle, hover over annotate, and you can annotate a mark, a point, or an area. I'm going to choose area, and it opens the edit annotation dialog box. And I'm going to type, these clusters are based on the total weeks on board for the artist/song. And I am going to select that font, make it bold, and go ahead and click OK. So the annotation comes up as an object on your visualization that you can move around and resize. So that's what that looks like. I can right click on that annotation and choose format. I want to go to borders, and I want to choose the straight line border, and I want to make it as thick as I can, and I'll make the border white and click away from it just to give it a little bit more context. I'm going to right click on it and edit it again, and I'm going to just select all the font, and I'm going to see what the font looks like in white and click OK. Oh no, that won't work. So I'm going to go back in, and I'll change the font to like a dark gray color. So that is an annotation. You can put an annotation on any visualization. Differs from the caption because it's actually on the visualization itself. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the annotation again, and on its format pane, notice it's a 4-sided box, right? Your other choice is single, edge, or none. And then the corners are square. I'm going to make the corners very rounded just because I can. And I'm going to go ahead and close that format pane and save my file. And so we've been hiding field labels throughout this course, and we most recently did it by artist trending on the artist trending by weeks on board sheet. And so we hid the artist field label over here. Now that I'm back on that sheet, I decide I want to edit the title, select the font, the text, and make it white and bold, just for consistency. So hiding field labels for rows was our last lesson in this module. And now we're ready to start creating our dashboards. And we're going to create 2 different dashboards here. So let's bring up a new dashboard sheet. And I'm going to change my size, and then I'm going to copy the sheet. On the original dashboard sheet, I am going to drag probably don't even really need a container, but I'll go ahead and drag a horizontal container onto the sheet. And then I'm going to drag the number 1 songs cluster analysis into that container. Now I am going to move my annotation, because when I put it on the dashboard in the container, it kind of overlaid a circle. And on the right side, I'm going to select that cluster color legend and remove it from the dashboard. And then I decide I want to change the color of the border on the annotation to orange. So I'm going to just right click on it and format and change the border to orange. I'm also going to go to the year of date filter and go to its drop down and format filter and set controls. And I would like to add a thick orange border to that filter control. I am also going to give it dark gray shading, and I'm going to go to the font and make it bold and white. And then I'm going to go over to it and edit its title. I'm going to select all of that text. And the title is going to be Pick Year of Analysis. And we're going to add 2 more things to this dashboard. And actually, I think I want to modify something here. I just want to make this look a little bit more consistent. I'm talking about the annotation. So I'm going to select it again, right click on it and format it. And I think that what I want to do with this one, I want to go ahead and give it a dark gray shading. And then I'm going to double click it, do Control A, and make the font white and bold. Click OK. So it kind of blends in a little bit better. Now, what are we going to add? I'm going to close that format pane on the left. I'm going to select floating, and then I'm going to grab the web page object and just drag it over to the right side for now. The edit URL box will pop up, and we're going to type https://www.billboard.com and click OK. So the web page object gives you the ability to view the web page right from your dashboard. You could also click on it and it will take you to that web page in a new window. And so now we need to do some resizing of items. I'm going to put my mouse between the date filter and the visualization and drag it to the left a little bit. And then I am going to resize this web page object so that it kind of fits into that right pane over there. And I'll move it up underneath the filter. And I'm going to select it again, and I can make it taller. I'm going to do X on that privacy policy. That's from the website. And then I'm going to go back to my objects list on the left, leave it on floating, and I'm going to select image. Actually, we'll come back and do this. Just do the X on that. We'll come back and do this after. So I'm going to remove that image placeholder after we create our next dashboard. So this dashboard is going to be named Cluster Analysis by Weeks on Board. And I'm going to show the dashboard title, and we're good with this one. Let's go to our copy of dashboard 1. And I did that so I wouldn't have to change the size again. And let's save our file. On this dashboard, let's go ahead and change it back to tiled, and then grab a horizontal container onto the view. And we're going to grab our artist trending by weeks on board viz and drop that in. Let's start on the right side, and we're going to get rid of that color grid. So I'm going to just remove it from the dashboard. We're going to name this sheet, the dashboard sheet, to Artist Peak Rate by Song. Let's go ahead and show the dashboard title. Now, before we get into additional formatting, let's do a little bit of testing. What I'd like to see is how many artists we can see at any one time and still have it be viewable. Now, this can change depending on your size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my artist filter, and at the top, I'm going to type in the search box Alice, and I'm going to check Alice Cooper. And then I'm going to click where I typed Alice, and I'm going to type Aretha and check Aretha Franklin. So now I have 5 different artists, and I can scroll down to see them comfortably. I don't want to have a large scroll. So from my particular size and visualization perspective, I'm going to limit myself to 4. And so I'm going to go back to my artist drop down, and I'm going to search for Alice again and uncheck Alice Cooper. Then I'm going to go to Aretha and uncheck Aretha Franklin. And then I'm going to change to floating again. And I'm going to grab the text object and drag it into the view. And in all capital letters, I'm going to type recommended and a colon. And I'm going to say, depending on your view, you may want to limit your artists to 4 or 5. So scrolling is not necessary. And I'm going to say, instead of artists, I'm going to say your artist filter. So it just depends on, resolution and stuff like that. I'm going to click OK. I want to grab that text box and size it down so it fits over on the right. And I'll put it right underneath the filters. All right. So now what we're going to do is, I want that text box text to be in white, but if I do that, we won't be able to read it because it has a white background there. So let's go up to the dashboard menu and choose format. And I'm going to do a dark gray dashboard shading. I'm going to make it a little bit darker than the dark gray I used on the worksheet for contrast. And then I'm going to double click that text box, do Control A, and make the font bold and white. So now you can see it because it has that contrasting color. Let's make the dashboard title also white and bold. And we're going to hide the worksheet title. And so it looks a little bit more consistent and organized this way. I'm going to change the title here to, I'm going to get rid of the sheet name placeholder, Artist Trending by Weeks on Board. And since I've been dashing those words, I should be consistent throughout. The worksheet title is better for the dashboard title here. So now, go ahead and save again and close your format pane on the left. And we're going to add something else to both of these dashboards. And we're going to add a navigation object here, and it's floating already, so we're good there. I'm going to just scroll down and grab the navigation object. And then I'm going to double click on it to get into it. And we're going to do navigate to, and we want the cluster analysis by weeks on board sheet or dashboard. And we're going to use an image, and we're going to choose our 1-7 arrow that's built in the shapes folder. We used it earlier in the course. Let's put a border on it, and I'm going to make it a thick white border. Not going to give it a background. And the tooltip is going to be go to cluster analysis dashboard and click OK. And now we just need to drag it and drop it like in the lower right corner. didn't give it a background, so it takes on the dashboard background, and it has that thick white border, so it kind of stands out. And then consistency can be everything. So I'm going to go up to my artist filter and do its more options drop down, format, filter, and set controls. And I'm going to choose a border, the thick border again. And because we used orange borders on the other one, I'm going to make it orange here. And it does it for both of those filters. I'm going to drag that text object down a little bit since I did that. And for our left arrow, I'm going to change its filter to, I want to change its filter to orange as well, just for consistency. Let's see. I mean, its border. Let's test our navigation button. Remember, you have to use Alt-click. And so we are going to do a few things on this one as well. Let's first go to the sheet. And so I'm going to use the Go to Sheet icon there. And I want to go to Format menu, choose Shading. And in my case, I made this a little bit too dark, so I'm going to lighten it up so it matches the other visualization. And then I'm going to go back to the cluster analysis dashboard. At the top of this, you can't see it because it's in white font. We're going to hide the title of the sheet. And we're going to close the format pane. Make sure you're on floating and grab the navigation object. We're going to double click it to edit it. And we're going to navigate to the artist trending by weeks on board dashboard. We're going to use an image. The image is going to be 1-3, which is the right pointing arrow. We are going to give it a very thick border. And the tooltip is going to be go to artist trending dashboard and click OK. We're going to move it and pop it into its position in the lower right. And we're going to go to Format, Dashboard, and we're going to do the darker gray dashboard shading. Change the title so that its font is white bold. And we are going to drag that web page object down just a little bit so it's underneath the filter. And for our navigation button, we need to change it to an orange border as well. So this is just like the consistency that you would want. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll right click on a dashboard sheet tab and I'll choose hide all sheets. So what happens is it hides the sheets that are being used on the dashboard. So now if you look, I just have 3 tabs showing there. I'm going to do the same on the artist peak rate by song dashboard sheet and hide all sheets. So now I just have my dashboard sheets. If I wanted to, I could right click and unhide all sheets at any point. So I'm going to close the format pane, do a final save, and we are done with our Billboard Hot 100 and analysis, so you can go ahead and close that file. In this 4th module, we use the Billboard Hot 100 analytics data, And we built a visualization and applied a trend line to it. You learned about the 5 trend models that are available in Tableau and what they are best used for. We then moved on to lesson 2, which was all about cluster analysis. And you learned that clustering is really like grouping, automatic grouping. And so we were able to create a packed bubble visualization, apply the cluster analysis, and see the bubbles represent differing numbers of weeks on the board. You learned that you can have up to 50 clusters if necessary. We applied an annotation to our cluster analysis visualization, and you saw that we could move the annotation around and have it just show on the visual. And we reviewed again throughout how to hide field labels before we created our 2 dashboards. On one of them, we added a web page object, and on both of them, we added navigation objects. I'd like to thank everyone for viewing this course. Hopefully you've learned some good tips and techniques to use in Tableau. So by way of review, I'm going to just go over what we've covered module by module in here. In module 3, we got to play with some Airbnb data from New York. In that lesson, you learned about global filters. Also, you learned how to modify the preferences file and to create your own custom color palette. And then you learned how to create text cards, which you could put on dashboards for a cool effect. In module 4, we played with Billboard Hot 100 data. And in this module, we learned about trends as well as cluster analysis. We learned about annotations. And throughout, we've been learning how to hide field labels, but we definitely covered it again in this module.